Hey guys, so now we're going to be looking at the fifth step, which is the last step, painting. Here's my bug. He is fully baked and solid. So now we're going to be talking in terms of paints. For paints, I usually use Cermacoat acrylic paint or this Craftsmart acrylic paint. The Craftsmart and the Cermacoat are both water-based acrylic paints, as you can see right there. The Craftsmart is really cheap. It's like 50 cents to $1 at Michael's. I would not use the Liquitex Basics because the Liquitex Basics has a polymer emulsion base. Now, because of this, the polymer emulsion in the paint and the polymer in the Sculpey clay sometimes interact in a way where the paint will not dry correctly and will leave kind of this like sticky residue. I personally have never had this happen to me, but I have seen other people's work where it has happened. Craftsmart paint is also bakeable. I didn't know this until I just read the packaging, but it says that this is bakeable, so you can bake this in the oven to cure it if you'd want to. I also use this Sculpey Gloss Glaze. Now, I personally like this Sculpey Gloss Glaze because it's thin enough where it gives me a gloss finish without removing texture. I find sometimes that glazes tend to be thicker, and because of that, sometimes remove texture that I put into the clay because it creates such a thick layer over my sculpture. So I like this because it doesn't do that. So to start off the painting, I have my paintbrushes, some water, a spatula to mix my paints, a palette, and a towel that I can wipe my brush on. I personally like to paint my sculptures using a dry brush method. This means that I paint the darker tones first and slowly bring up the lighter tones. This allows for the texture that I put in sculpturally to be better seen and viewed in the final finished product. So in this case, I'm going to make my base black, and then I will slowly bring out the textures with lighters, greens, reds, and yellows. The dry brush method also means that your brush is dry. So you want to make the first layer nice and overall thick and covered, but every layer afterwards, you want your brush to be almost dry to the point where there's only a little bit of paint on it. You kind of want to have to rub your brush into the sculpture to get that pigment to show up. You're also going to want to make sure that you let it dry between each layer, because if not, then your lighter layer is going to blend in with your darker layer that's underneath, and you're not going to have that lighter effect. this is the Beetle fully painted. This does not have the gloss glaze on it. I wanted to give you guys an up close of the sculpture before the gloss glaze so you can really see the difference. But you can still see the tones of the yellow, green, and reds that I added and how they bring out the sculptural aspects of the Beetle. Now I'm going to be adding the gloss glaze all over. I do one thin coat. If you want to add more, you can. The more layers you add, the glossier it's going to look, but I just want kind of like that exoskeleton shine. So I do one thin layer and then let it dry. And this is the Beetle after the single layer of gloss glaze, and it's all dry. You can see that it's a little shinier than it was before. Before it was more matte, and now you can tell more that the black is in all of the creases. I think that gloss glaze really brings out the colors a bit more. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video series, and I hope you feel ready to start your own Sculpey project.